everyone. Welcome back inside the Inside the Park for May podcast. Got a little ahead of myself there. For podcast 903, this is Todd.
No, Todd, not
A.K.
now.
Negative Camber. You know why I've asked you here.
You must convince the villagers that I'm harmless.
That's exactly what I need you to do tonight. For your kind consideration, we're going to talk about Formula One news because there was no race. This is not a race review. You know what that means. That means, and it's been a minute, folks, it means I get to introduce my guest tonight. You know what that means. I got to go all the way to the right coast of America, nestled in our nation's capital, where she has the world's largest cat tree. You know her. You love her. The lovely, the redoubtable Grace. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty great, Todd. How are you doing?
Good. I'm doing well. It's been a minute since you've been on the show.
Yeah, but stuff's been happening.
Well,
so,
I know. You know, Paul Charsley hogging all the airtime. You know?
I know, right? Like,
yeah.
How many famous people did he get to meet, right?
Yeah.
Plus, he got to hang out with Tony and his family. So, you know.
I know.
Right on.
Hanging out with T. Green. You know,
That's right.
last weekend I was down at SRO, and they had a first place and a second place.
Nice.
The girls were in P2, and Roman and Gray P1.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I just, you know.
They're just going from success to success, that team.
And it's all because of us, right?
Of course it is.
We're the reason, right?
Of course it is. Yes, of course it is. You know, and it's all of the Park for May listeners that go to the races and they go see
yeah.
Paul and they ask for Paul, and it's add that sort of je ne sais quoi to that team. They're all feeding off of Paul's energy. That's what I'm telling myself.
Because why would you look for what? You know, Valentino Rossi,
Yeah,
Jensen
Button. I mean, who cares?
You know, like Kubica, whoever else is just
Yeah.
hanging out at the pad. We're not looking for any of those guys. We're here to see Paul.
Here to see Paul.
That's right.
Who needs to see some washed up F1 drivers when you could go and see Paul, right?
Jensen Button. I didn't say that. Todd did. Please at him, not me. Thanks.
Yeah, JB and I were like this, you know. JB and I.
Me too.
We're so close. Yeah. Hey, all right, so I know the first question I got to ask you, everybody. It's on everybody's mind. It was during the last three races. It's on everybody's mind. Being a card-carrying, and in good standing, I might add, a card-carrying member of the old school fangirl club of McLaren.
Yeah.
What is your opinion on what's going on in McLaren? Is it time to switch allegiance to Lando to make a run at Max? Is it too late to do that? Has Oscar Piastri officially knocked his feet off the desk? What's your opinion?
It was mostly Alex Marquez's fault. That's my answer.
Oh, he had nowhere to go. He couldn't disappear. Pecco squeezed him.
I said mostly.
Okay.
I said mostly, 100%. That's why it's a racing incident. But
Yes.
it was mostly Alex Marquez's fault.
Right.
You know, I think I'd like to believe they have a plan. Because
Okay.
I'd like to believe that they're not McLaren of old. McLaren, and of old, I still mean Zach. I don't mean like Ron Dennis. But like,
Yeah.
they're always their own worst enemy. So I'd like to believe we're beyond that and that they have a plan. And I just don't know their plan. And I just need to have my own, like, just, it's fine. We'll believe. But I mean, I think like every other pundit who's out there has said, like, well, they better figure it out, right? I don't know what.
Well,
you know,
Will Buxton blew a head gasket.
He sure did, but I agree with them. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that I think there's two sides of it. I think it's the point that a lot of people who watch the sport, like Will Buxton, put out there, like, as a fan, this is what you want, right? As a fan, we hate the idea of team orders, right?
Yep.
We want them to fight. We want like, that's what you want out on the track. That's
Right.
great.
Right.
But as Zach Brown, as Andrea Stella, you need to sit those boys down and have an agreement. And there's going to be tears and there's going to be gnashing of teeth, but we have to have rules and you have to have it figured out. And so that when I tell you plan F or multi-21 or multi-12, you know what I'm talking about and you follow what I told you, right?
Mm-hmm.
That has to be the team's perspective. It can't ever be, we just have two drivers and they just race each other, because that's not what gets you the constructor championship and that's what gets you money.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I agree with Will Buxton 100%. And again, as a fan, yeah, you want to believe there's nothing like that and that it's just the best man wins. But you know, we all know better than that. And whether they are going to support Lando, which is who I believe they should support, or Oscar Piastri, but Lando's already been through this with Ricciardo was the other thing too, right? Like, just let Daniel have a win, and then he'll be better, right? Because I think that's true too. We've all been in that situation in our jobs, whatever it is, like that first sale or whatever. You just have to break that first duck, and once you do that, success is easier, right? Just getting over that first hump is always the hardest part. But that didn't pan out for Ricciardo, and Lando's not going to let it happen again. He can't let it happen again. So he has all the space to be mad about it, but you can't go into Baku and not have an agreement. You can't just let it be whatever you guys want to do. Stella, that's on you. You've got to get them to sit down, talk to each other, whatever that is. Because otherwise, it's just Force India running each other off the road every week. And McLaren, you've come so far. I bought the jacket. I'm finally fully in. You can't do this to me now. Have a conversation. And so I got to do that.
I tend to be, I don't know, I tend to be a little numb to all this. It's not that I'm not compassionate or caring. I am. But when it comes to that sort of, I think it's too late. I don't think it really matters. I think they should have made that decision in Hungary when they made Lando move over. That too many points between Max and Lando as it was, even in Hungary. And they should have made the decision back then that they're going to support Lando. He's leading in the Drivers' Championship. That would have been 2 races now. He would have won and gained, 7, 8 points. I see. And to me, I think now it's a little late in the season to be saying, oh, no, now we're really going to get behind Lando.
I agree.
Yeah, you're too late.
I'm hoping that it's just what they tell us, and that's not what's happening in the locker room.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of the whole, like, why does Lewis complain about his tires all the time and he wins? Maybe it's strategery, right?
It could be.
So I'm just going to go with, although I agree with you, and I don't believe it's strategery, I'm going to believe it is. Because McLaren, could you just not be your own worst enemy for once? For once.
Jesus.
Lando.
Come on. For one darn moment, one season, could you just not be the reason you lose?
Yeah, Patreon supporter Jason, he agrees with you. He says Grace is right. If they don't have some ground rules, they'll end up at the first corner with one car into the back of the other. Yep.
I mean,
yeah.
And if Oscar, everybody's talking about, like, what does Oscar have in his contract? Mark Webber's his, manager, multi-21, right? Like, right. But you also agreed to what you signed, McLaren, right? Like, that goes both ways. And so I think they also had to have some plan and know how this is going to play out, because no driver ever goes to a team to be a number 2, 1.
Mm-hmm.
Second of all, for sure, when they signed Oscar, they weren't just like, well, Lando's just going to have to find out the hard way that Oscar got our support, right? Like, I don't think that they knew what they were signing. This isn't, like you were saying, even if they weren't having a good season, you still know Zach Brown, what's in everybody's contracts. I don't, right? I'm only guessing, as is every other pundit, but you know where it's going to mesh and where it's not. So unless somebody has a Fernando clause, you better have figured out this before you ever got to this point. And you're right. If you're really going to put down the law, that should have already happened.
It should have already happened. I agree.
That's a good point.
I agree. But, it's like Patreon supporter Ian says here in our live chat. He says Aussie's putting the diesel fuel on the fire, Yeah. Leave it. Hey, I got, we got an email I shared. Well, I don't want to name names, but I got an email, shared that with you and Paul, a little critical of our Aussie friends. Their demeanor, but you
have to know where you stand.
Yeah.
If Oscar's gonna, I don't know, I don't want to say petulant. He's a good driver, right? He has every right, and he believes in himself, because you have to believe in yourself to be at this level.
Oh yeah.
So he may not agree with it, but you have to know where you stand.
See, yeah, and I agree with that, Grace, because at the end of the day, Oscar, he's not there.
No.
Valtteri Bottas to Lando, right? That's not his role. He's there to knock Lando's feet off the desk and take a team by the scruff of the neck and go win championships. And I love that about his demeanor, and that necessarily has anything to do with being Aussie or not. I think that's just being a guy who is incredibly talented and who is incredibly determined, and we saw Lewis do it, we saw Alonso do it, we've seen all the champion, Vettel do it, Schumacher, all of them have done it, and I don't think it's any different.
It's what happens with quarterbacks, right?
Yeah,
somebody gets injured and the new guy comes along and you're like, oh, great,
Whoa.
it's going to be our new quarterback, right? So,
right.
But
Right.
I think that it just can't get to this point, and whether or not you say that, again, I think it's no different than our own jobs. I feel like every time I'm like, Formula One, it's completely different from my job. Formula One is exactly like my job,
Yeah.
right? My boss can say, hey, Grace, I hear what you're saying about this project. Okay, and here's what Todd's saying, and okay, I don't agree with that, and that's not what we're doing. And then the onus is on me to find a new project, find a new job.
Throw the toys out of the pram.
Right. But
Yeah.
at least my boss and I have to be on the same page about what my thoughts are.
What the end goal is.
And what his or her decisions are going to be.
Yeah.
And regardless of the project. So I think that stands here. It's up to Stella. You're the one that decides. And if Oscar's not going to follow the rules, then that's on him. I feel like this quote's going to come up multiple times this conversation during this pod. But to quote our friend Otmar Schnafnauer, you can't have two popes.
Yep.
And so, Stella, if you're going to be the one pope, you're the one that's going to have this tough conversation.
Yeah, the world's replete with those. Too many cooks in the kitchen and all that good stuff,
Yeah.
I agree. Points. Well, everybody wanted to know, coming from a McLaren fan, what your thoughts were on it.
Don't muck it up. That's always, as a McLaren fan, that's always my motto. Please don't if Ferrari takes you out, if Red Bull went, at least that's somebody else I can blame. Don't mess your own race up.
Yeah. Somebody sent me a message, said you're being a little harsh on the whole, making fun of the papaya rules comment. I said, am I? That's kind of sophomoric. I don't think so.
I don't know. It's kind of a weird statement. What, I don't know.
Grace, papaya rules. What? Just,
I don't know.
Let's be adults about it. Or just tell me, what the strategy is, and we'll go from there.
You have, again, we all know, they all have some agreement what plan C is or plan. You have some code for it.
Sure. Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens this weekend in Baku.
That's right.
Should be fun times.
Yeah, it always is.
Yes.
Time for the street courses.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's time for those street courses.
And we'll see how Sergio Perez does, because that's always fun, too.
It is fun. Yeah. Baku, not, who is a track, it's just...
Not friendly to
Sergio.
No.
It's really not.
Will he make it to Mexico? That's our next watch.
Well, maybe.
You like my bass? You like it?
So far, not.
Okay.
So, let's jump into... And clearly, the elephant in the room this whole past week or 2 weeks has been Adrian Newey, the most successful.
The almost news.
The almost news. Yeah, isn't that funny? Yeah, nobody will just officially say it because it hasn't officially been announced by Aston, but all the British press headlines, they all say
it's done.
Close to the point that it's a done deal, but they can't quite say it's a done deal. Yeah. They're contorting themselves in pretzel-like shapes to try to say that it's a done deal, but it's really not.
It's like those gimmick T-shirts they used to have at the mall in the 90s, where it's really big print, and the little print is what anyway, that's what it feels like. Adrian Newey is almost on his way to Aston Martin.
Yeah, right. Yes, I know. I remember what you're talking about.
Thank you.
Anyway, that is the news now. So all the news that are saying that Adrian Newey is going to Aston Martin, and I doubt there's really any reason to doubt any of them at this point. I think we knew Ferrari and Aston were interested, but there was a brief rumor there for a while that Williams were sniffing around too. But you have to be realistic, I think, in the amounts of money that it would take to lure a guy like Newey, the most successful engineer in F1 history. That pretty much left Lawrence, Stroll, and Ferrari, right?
Yeah.
Bidding against each other. Now, apparently, Ferrari bowed out of the negotiations because they didn't want to get into a bidding war with Lawrence, apparently.
They didn't have enough money.
Yeah, probably spent it all on Lewis, if I'm honest.
I mean, It's like they're in an auction together. At some point, Fred's like, "No, I can't put up my hand."
Yeah, exactly. They got out of that. So I never thought. Now, this isn't hindsight's being 2020. I think I even said on a podcast. I think you and I talked about this back when he said he was leaving Red Bull, and I said, everything he's achieved, all of his success. I don't see him going to Ferrari because I don't see him moving to Italy, if I'm honest. He doesn't really need to, and despite almost everyone always wanting to go to Ferrari, including Lewis Hamilton at some point in their career, I just feel like everything he's done, I think something closer at home would have appealed to him more. That's probably why he was even, willing to entertain a conversation with Williams. Aston, keep in mind, irrespective of what's going on track, Lawrence Stroll is putting a significant investment in the state-of-the-art facility and new wind tunnel, everything for Aston Martin. This facility is just top-notch. And that had to be awful appealing for Adrian,
Yeah.
Brand new facilities, brand new wind tunnel, state-of-the-art fabrication, engineering. Dan Fallows, who used to work with me at Red Bull, is already there. Just had to be very appealing for him. And so go ahead.
I was going to say, especially because Lawrence is like, and how much do you need?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Whereas any of the other teams, right? None of them are run by gazillionaires, right?
Yeah,
so any of the other ones are like, well, Ferrari's like, well, I got other things I got to take care of. He's just like, here it is.
Yeah. Ferrari's like, yeah, we're we're on fixed income now that we hired Lewis,
That's we're on Medicare Plus over here. Please don't ask for any more money out of us.
Yeah. You know how many Ferrari 488s we got to sell to pay for Lewis? It's ridiculous.
Yeah. So, and anything he wants. I think that's the other thing too. I mean, I think as long as, again, he's the Pope and there aren't two popes, right?
Yeah.
As long as he has that creative freedom and the team supports that and is built around that, there's nothing that Lawrence can't give him.
Yeah. Melton said, Reed, he's getting part ownership in Aston.
I mean, that's pretty nice.
No, he could have stock options in his contract too. You never know. Be part of it. Now, I'm also curious about exactly what his role is. I mentioned Dan Fellows is already there, working on car and chassis design and all that good stuff. So he worked with Adrian at Red Bull. So I think it'll be interesting to see when they announce it. A lot of people saying it'll be this weekend in Baku, but when they announce it and what details they choose to share about his role, his workload, all of that will be really intriguing to me. I hope they share that. Will this be the most expensive consultant in F1 history? Is he going to do actual day-to-day work with employees? Is he going to be at every race? I doubt that.
I love the idea of Adrian Newey, like with his little lunchbox and briefcase every day.
Don't you? Yeah, coming in with his thermos,
Yeah, right. It pours out his soup. Yeah,
he pours out his soup, a little plastic cup at the top, and
exactly.
On that, and he's got a little cheese and cracker packet there.
Some
maybe one day he gets crazy, he stops at a Lancashire truck and brings Lancashire sandwich in. Who knows? So that'll be interesting. Now the rumor is now you have to get off of the big press in the UK and go to some of the secondary and tertiary to find this.
My life goal, I don't know about you, but my life goal, and I like my job, it's not personal, is less work, more money, less work.
Right.
Not more money, more work. So I have no idea why you would ever be, I'm going to make more money and just be a day-to-day employee. No.
Yeah.
More money, less work.
That's going to be a consultant, air quotes. Yes.
I'll work, when I feel like it.
I'll review all the crap you design and give my, quote, thoughts.
That's right. From the Maldives, most likely. Yes.
Or Tenerife, right? And so I think, now the rumor is in some of the other out there that the deal is a £30 million per year deal. And that's really good for for Eddie Jordan, who is Adrian Newey's manager.
Well, I mean, Eddie's that's like Flavio and Mark Webber, right? Eddie Jordan.
Yeah.
Although I didn't know that. Did you? I mean, I knew that But only recently I learned that Eddie Jordan was his manager.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was like a long-term thing. But
Yeah.
right on, Eddie.
Eddie's like, cha-ching, counting that money.
Yeah, I'll be taking my cut. Thank
Yeah,
you very much.
exactly. One for you, one for me. 1, 2 for me, 1, 2 for
Yeah,
you. Yeah,
right.
The old Bugs Bunny routine. Yes. So it'll be interesting to see what his role is for. I mean, if he's just gonna kind of like phone in and review some CAD drawings for $30 million a year and give his opinions on it, I don't know, man.
That's only going to last like race 2.
Yeah.
Lawrence is not.
Yeah. There's a lot of pressure. Lawrence, you know how Lawrence is.
He'd be dragging you down the pit lane by your ear, buddy. You better put something out for that, right?
Yeah, yeah. And Lawrence is like, oh, if I'm going to be paying $30 million a year for this guy, I want a championship winning car and I want it now.
Yeah, that's right.
Right?
You'll get your cheese and crackers when your car wins.
Right.
Sir.
Right. That's why I didn't hire you just to give some occasionally insightful input to our designs. Hired you to design us a winning car.
Correct.
Right? So that's what's going to be on the line there. Hey, just reading this article. I don't know what you guys think. The conversation here between Jason and Ian. Jason said, I love that he stayed so relevant in a sport that is dominated by computers and screens everywhere. And Ian said truth. And Jason said it shows that you can never replace brains and experience. And I think that's absolutely true, Jason. You can't Google and get wisdom and experience from having done it for as long as Adrian's done it.
Not that people don't try.
They definitely try. Yeah, I love all the hastily assembled Google internet theories. But
I don't know. I guess I have a job that people think they can do, and that was before AI was a thing, and now people really think they can do my job.
Yeah.
So, right on.
Yeah. It's true. Very true. There's a difference between, in my world, there's a difference between talking about running 60,000 foot of Category 6 cable and physically pulling 60,000 foot of Category cable in a plenum ceiling. It's not fun.
That's right.
Anyway, this I thought was an interesting story. I was reading over at Auto Sport, and it's concerning Audi's remaining seat and the driver dilemma choice they have over there. I was reading this article, and Audi and just the whole concept of struggling with their second driver choice. Of course, we know that they've hired Nico Hülkenberg, right? That he's their first driver. He is a seasoned veteran for sure, with a lot of experience. So as we saw with Haas, youngsters isn't always a great recipe for your wallet, and they ended up saying, "Oh boy."
Terrible.
Gunther bailed on that, and they got 2 veterans in Nico and Kevin, which, despite some, the lack of results, I'm sure they wanted all in Nico and Kevin, but it did seem to reduce the amount of damage and produce more points for the team. That's 2 veterans. And so the big question in this article, and the question I'm interested in, is will Audi want that kind of situation? If so, then maybe the talk that Valtteri Bottas is still being considered or in the frame for that second seat would give you 2 seasoned veterans, right?
Right.
Then on the flip side of that argument, about the F2 star Gabriel Bortoleto, would a youngster be a better match to help develop a future driver for the team? If so, would that young driver be best for a team that is trying to, in the interim, get the medium term, get its sea legs in F1, end up, discovering a competitive package, right? I was reading this story and I thought, well, in a lot of ways, in the short term, they got to replace the second driver. Yeah. Would the short term be better served with another veteran driver for car development, those kind of thing, knowing that next year will be a difficult year? Would it be better served to get a young driver in their development program and kind of develop him along? By the time 2026 comes along, you have a young driver that's had some seat time in a lot of races. And then I was reading, and went later in the article, and new boss Matteo Binotto, you remember him?
I do.
Yeah.
Great hair.
Yes, great hair, great glasses. Yeah,
I remember the guy.
This is what he had to say about the whole thing.
Okay.
this is a project which is looking to a long-term objective. So the question is, what's the best for us now to the final goal? Is it more having short-term experience and then moving to something different? We need to decide, and today I think we are not in that position to answer. We are certainly listening to all potential drivers. We are certainly evaluating what the pros and the cons are for the best compromise. You also have the current reserve driver there who was kind of marched out of IndyCar, remember? And no one seems to be talking about him, although he's current reserve driver, and nobody's talking about poor Joe Guan Yu. So his days in F1 unlimited. There's that. Favorite at this point, the article goes on to say, is Valtteri.
Yeah.
With a contract extension. But if it were me, Grace, I'd go a different direction completely.
Okay.
You know, Liam isn't picked by Red Bull or RB next year. I'd borrow Liam for a season. Right?
I mean, right, that's sort of an in-between.
Yes. That's sort of an in-between. Owen, young guy.
He's not a rookie.
Not a rookie.
But not a veteran.
Not a veteran, exactly.
Okay.
And you could borrow him and team time to sort of get to their introductory year in Formula One, right?
Right.
So I think Liam might be good. Of course, they wanted Carlos Sainz. That didn't work out.
Nope.
That would have been the best pick. You might say, well, what about Kevin Magnussen? He's out of a ride at Haas. You know, you get the band back together. What about Daniel Ricciardo or Yuki if they aren't retained, or even Sergio if he's not retained at Red Bull? If you want experience, why not? If you want experience, here's an idea. Why not bring Vettel back so he can help you develop the 2026 car? He's German, right? People love Vettel now. They used to love to hate him when it was him against Lewis, but now they love him. So what about that?
It wasn't because of Lewis. They just hated him.
Yeah, they did. Kind of Lewis, because everybody, you know, the British press was big Lewis fans.
All right, so maybe
Initially liked Seb. They loved that he loved British humor. He was on Top Gear. Everybody loved him until he started winning titles. And then all of a sudden he was a bad guy. And that was when Lewis came out, and then they had their new hero. And it's understandable. The British press, I get it.
I think I'm just speaking for myself then. Fine. My dislike of Sebastian Vettel had nothing to do with Lewis.
But you like him now.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's nice now. It's the finger. He's not out there doing this all the time.
There you go. It's the
not
finger.
Not a dark face. That's right.
Oh.
It's possible.
Donato's right. There is a short, medium, and long-term perspective here.
He really said nothing.
But yeah, he did. I know. But
he really.
What do you think? What would you do if you were Mattia
He
Donato?
really wrote the executive summary for that whole article.
He did. He did.
You know,
yeah,
like,
we've got short-term, long-term.
Maybe Bonato really ran it through an AI, right? Like he just ran the Autosport story through AI and said, "Come up with a quote." Here it is.
Right.
I mean, yes, of course, Bonato, that is what you are doing. You're trying to figure out what you can do in the short term to build your long term, and you could pick somebody with no experience, and you could pick somebody with lots of experience, and both of those are sort of different routes next to Hülkenberg, who we've already signed. Thanks.
Right.
I knew that. Good. Cool.
Right.
Great quote.
Right.
But glad we spent this time together. I mean, definitely, I like your idea, like of a Liam Lawson or somebody like that that's, you know, again, not a rookie, not a veteran. But if I had to choose one or the other, I would not choose a rookie. You are a new team, and let's say you have I'm going to say you have a list of 25 things that you are trying to figure out. If you hire 2 veterans, that's 2 things off your list you don't have to try to figure out, right? They have experience, they have a track record, and they can help you because they have experience and they have a track record, right? They're able to say, oh, this is the car, or here's where I'm having problems. A rookie, you can't sort out, I guess you're trying to run an experiment, right? You're trying to hold as many things constant. Your drivers are something you can hold pretty constant if they're veterans.
Right.
Right? I could send Alonso out there in car or setup A, and then look at the data. And I could send them out in cars setup D and look at the data and go, well, some percentage of this is Alonso, but most of it isn't. So then I can look at A and I can look at D and go, oh, we should go with D. That's the better option. If you have a rookie, you can't do that.
Right.
I just think that's where, having a rookie is not, maybe it's good for you long term, but I don't know. It's not like this is a slightly separate tangent, but it's not like the sport is going to run out of young talent because this series only has a very small number of seats and a gazillion people in their drivers programs. I mock Red Bull all the time for their young drivers program because they always have like 80 drivers in their young drivers programs for 4 seats ever, right?
Right.
And some of those seats, the main Red Bull, they bring up from the satellite team. So I don't think if you pass up on this young talent, you're going to have 27 next year because all of your Mercedes has too many young drivers, Red Bull has too many young drivers because there's just not a place to put them. And they don't have the same sort of like stuff George to Williams for a couple of years before we have time.
Yeah.
And just ask Ocon, he got screwed in this whole process. He was supposed to be at Mercedes and that never happened. So
Right.
I just think that I wouldn't pick a rookie and I wouldn't be worried about it because there's always going to be another, Kimi Antonelli, Jack Doohan, you fill in the blank of some other driver that we'll be able to put in our seat because there's always going to be more young talent than there are seats.
Yeah, along that lines, let's say that these drivers, I don't know that they will be, but let's just say all of the following drivers I list are somehow available at the end of this year.
Right.
Sergio Perez, Daniel, Yuki, right? Kevin,
Right.
Joe Guan Yu, or Valtteri Bottas. Which one would you pick?
So I would pick Bottas.
You'd stay with Valtteri. Okay.
I think that because he's been at Mercedes, he raced Lewis, right? So that is valuable information, even though it's a little dated now.
Mm-hmm.
But he was with Mercedes when they were good, right?
Yep.
So you have that experience. He knows, kind of like we were talking like with James Vowles.
Yeah.
James Vowles was able to go, this coffee maker isn't going to do it. Williams, we've got to fix this. Right?
Yeah,
So
right.
Valtteri Bottas knows what Mercedes did with their 7,000 employees. So here's what we're going to do with our slightly less than 7,000
Get rid of the
employees.
Keurig.
Right, shit coffee, right? Hire an espresso person. Well, let's do this right. So anyway, I would want that. And he's been at this current version of Stick F1. So he would be able to take that from Audi. So you know him, he knows you, right? Yeah, the players change, but it's a little more comfortable in that sense that you've kind of like, it's like, you've switched agencies.
That's
or
true.
something.
They've seen a lot of Valtteri, Well,
so I think
they've seen a whole lot of Valtteri. We all have, but yes.
and bought the calendar. But I think the idea is that's what I would. You're right. Valtteri does know espresso, Dave.
He does. You're right, Dave.
That's who I would keep because if you're going to go the veteran route, that to me is the obvious veteran to take. Why would you go find a new veteran when you know this one and he knows stuff?
Ooh, I might take a punt on Sergio.
Wow. I mean, I guess he's at Red Bull. That would be very useful information.
It'd be very useful. Very useful. Yeah. I think what he could bring, knowledge, I just feel like, and this is all just my emotion and unyielding love for Sergio, but I feel like it's unfinished business for Sergio. I think he is a square peg in a round hole at Red Bull, which unfortunately is how it turned out. I think if the pressure was off him and he was back at Sauber/Audi, them developed a car that might be helpful. Some of that is I truly don't know how efficient and effective he is in car development. I don't know that. I think Nico is probably pretty good at that. To your point, I don't know if Valtteri is. I assume he is. Some drivers are better than others. I think Alexander Albon, I think, is actually really good.
Alexander Albon. Why does everybody keep calling him
Alex?
He's never gone. Yeah.
Yeah. I think Alex Albon is good at it. I think Vettel was good at it. Yeah, I don't know. Just an odd thing, but
I mean, so you're right. I think that you would want somebody like Alex, right?
Yeah.
Albon, but he's not for
He's
sale
not
right
available.
now. So,
Yeah,
right. But yeah, that would be great, and that's why it's great at Williams. But
yeah,
you're right. I don't necessarily.
Oh, I didn't say Mick Schumacher. He was available too, and he's German.
Well, according to James Vowles, he's not very good. So why are we?
He's not special.
Anyway? He isn't special.
He isn't special, is he? Mick, you're special to Grace and I. Damn it, you're special, buddy.
And to Toto, that we also learned.
Toto for sure. Toto's paying him.
Toto gave him some hugs, but I think that.
Yes, he did.
Speaking of somebody you just want to know where you stand. See, I think that James was just. I mean, Toto's not wrong, right? Maybe he shouldn't have been that blunt. That's probably not good team principal material to be that blunt. But you know, come on, Logan Sargent, that was great. Yeah, I'll get right.
Patriot listener Jason said, and don't forget Logan Sargent. Yes.
I'll get right on that one.
Feel like Jason that he kind of, Logan is kind of damaged goods with this, and I feel like in some sense, Teo Pourchaire's getting marched to the curb in IndyCar is kind of a residue.
Who wants that? Nobody's going to pick that up.
I mean, if march to the curb in IndyCar, no, that's not good. Yeah, that's
like
good.
NASCAR's not even willing to spend their owner's points to keep you in the race, right?
Right. That's not a good sign.
Yeah, that isn't good. Nobody's gonna pick that up.
Yeah,
so,
I know. I knew you were joking, Jason. By the way, he said insert sarcasm. Yes, I knew.
Right. Well, I mean, for sure, when you have been racing and crashing, then we bring in this kid that's never been in a car before, and he did pretty good.
This would be great. We did that. I enjoyed it the first time when it was called Nikita Mazepin. That was sort of a whoo.
I think you know what the problem is just as well as I do.
Yeah, I think so.
But he did get paid because the car was able to leave.
Yeah, the car was able to leave. That's good. Yeah, that
was like a joyful side quest of politics in F1. Like
some controversy, as Paul would say.
Yes, I enjoyed Gene looked very nervous the whole weekend. I was like, I love this sport. It's so
I like the
crazy.
shot with Gene standing out front and his hat's kind of like this, kind of sideways, looking around. It's like, dude, you're just letting everyone in Europe know that you literally just crawled out of the Carolinas.
Yeah.
So there you go. I'm with you. I'm with you, Gene.
Yeah. So I think that's where, so I think experience is kind of where we're sitting with that. That's, I mean, you're going to have time. I would want to get my sea legs of the rush? Team and then bring in some new talent.
Why the rush?
Because by then, again, Jack Doohan will be like, I'm ready.
Here's my message, Audi.
What they're doing anymore.
Don't rush it. You made us wait this long before you got into F1. Don't all of a sudden say, "Oh, we hurry." I mean, we were writing. I was reading stupid Audi to F1 stories for 10 years.
Easily.
10 years.
There's a part of me that doesn't believe it.
Yeah, I know. I still don't believe it until I see the 4 rings on the grid.
It's kind of like the 4/5 Olympics. Yeah, I can't. It's like the Adrian Newey story. Like, that's a joke. Flip every morning sends me here's a story. It's still not official. Stop, because I literally said that to him. Stop sending me Adrian Newey stories. When it's official, send me the story. Otherwise, it's just going to be the same.
Someone said, "Why haven't you posted that on the website? Because it's not official." I will when it's official. I'll do that.
It will be soon, I'm sure.
I'm sure it will.
Worst kept secret since Ralph Schumacher to Toyota, but
isn't it just
until official?
So this in the news also. I won't spend time on it because everybody's you're just a Ferrari fan. I am, but Ferrari did a little reshuffle. So when Aston Martin poached Enrico last year, the former technical director at Ferrari, promptly turned around and poached engineer Loic Serra from Mercedes. Now, Loic Serra was on garden leave for an entire year.
You get a job like that?
Yes. So you get let go. Someone else desperately wants Grace to come work for him, and they're just going to pay out the garden leave, and you get to sit home for a year around the garage and the garden, do stuff. Be nice. Anyway.
Never come back. Yeah.
So he is now going to be starting soon, and he will be the new team chassis technical director. So
I do like that Aston Martin. That Larry's just collecting everybody.
Larry's doing it, man.
He's just filling all the positions. Does he need somebody in that position?
That doesn't matter.
He's got 6 people to play shortstop. It's fine.
Right.
We'll just keep getting more shortstops. They're available. We're going to buy them.
He's buying so many key personnel. You walk into the lobby of the new place, they'll have the balcony with the little box and the two old guy Muppets up there. He'll throw everything at it. He'll buy whatever he's got to buy. Buy everything that the kitchen sink, everything to make
Waldorf
this
and
team.
Statler.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah.
Yes, love
And,
those guys.
Yeah, I think that's true. But it's just like every time it's like somebody, I can just hear like, Scott Mitchell mom, like somebody just got bought out. Who? They're going to Aston Martin. Surprise. How many people has he got going over there?
He won't stop there. He may buy Scott Mitchell mom for all we know.
That'd be great. Scott
By
Mitchell,
him.
He's been on fire. So I would love that. That would be great. He should be their press director. That would be great.
Wouldn't it just? All right. Moving off that, nothing against you, Scott. Go get him, Tiger. Next up, had enough of Nico.
Every day.
There's a split in the audience out there. Some people love the fact that Rosberg back in there because he's so confrontational and asks really challenging questions that nobody's going to ask because it's borderline. Everybody thinks it's borderline crossing the line, right?
He's a jerk. Yes.
Yeah.
So we enjoy that. Yeah.
People hate that about him and don't like him and don't think he adds anything to the broadcast.
Yeah.
He has an interesting personality.
Oh, I think that's always been true. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's like, he's being authentic. I mean, this is not, I just,
Right.
love him or hate him. That is
Right.
just who he is. But
Yeah. I'd love to go out and have dinner and have a bottle of wine with him. I think he'd be hilarious. And I'd love to hear all of his thoughts and stories. But anyway, Nico Rosberg says that George Russell isn't safe at Mercedes as Toto Wolff still wants Max Verstappen.
You know what? I think the thing
Verstappen,
is,
sorry.
Nico Rosberg is, and this has come up before, like if I just read what Nico Rosberg said, I'd be like, oh yeah, I agree with that. That's fine. That's legit. But to hear him say it, I'm like, you're just a jerk.
Yeah.
Like, I can't get over his like delivery and his like.
You didn't like him beating up your boy Zach, did you?
Well, I mean, but it's just, so this is a
Leave
point,
my
right?
Zach alone.
That's right. That's a line. No, I mean, this is a fair point. For you to just say, Nico Rosberg said George Russell isn't safe at Mercedes because Toto Wolff wants Verstappen. That's a true statement.
Mm-hmm.
I think I stand behind Nico Rosberg is just telling us the truth. George Russell already knows this, right? He's not telling George Russell the truth. He's aware, right?
Yeah, right.
He's telling us this. And I think that's fine. But like, I can just envision the way Nico Rosberg would have said it. And I would have been like,
Yeah.
smugness. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
It's a hard personality to swallow, even though I probably agree with like 90% of the things he says.
It's true. It's just, it's one of those things. It's a personality thing. Either he resonates with you or he doesn't. And I have that too. Somebody sent me a message a couple of weeks ago and says, you're an idiot. You don't know anything about F1 and your soundboard stuff is stupid. Okay. I don't resonate with everybody. I get it. That's fine.
That would be fun for the soundboard though.
Wouldn't it? You're an idiot. You don't know anything about F1. Your soundboard's stupid. Yeah, I wish that would have been a voicemail. I would have used it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, whatever. I don't appeal to everybody. I get it. But Rosberg, so George's contract expires at the end of 2025. And actually, so does Kimi Antonelli's. But Rosberg reckons Toto will go for Max in 2026. So George is under threat. Now, a lot of things have to sort themselves out until that time, such as Antonelli's true pace, as well as George's. But there's a part of me that has always felt George didn't get the best deal at Mercedes in a long-term view. And let me unpack that. I think they waited too long to bring him into F1. I was calling for that team to bring George in 2 years before they actually did, and they didn't. That was even made more evident by the politicking that Toto did and the mountain moving in order to get Kimi in next year at his age. Well, why wouldn't they have done that for George?
And George is for sure like,
George is the real thing.
Wait a minute. You know, right? Like,
right. And I've always felt like George is sort of the rented mule over there. And I don't know why, because he's more than Valtteri. He's shown he could beat Lewis on any given day. He can out-qualify Lewis on any given day. And we could argue that all along and who's better and blah, blah. But
he's a PR machine, right? Like, it's all pluses with that guy.
He's a dashingly handsome young man. So, Lewis's car and beat Valtteri when he sat in for Lewis, right?
Right.
And still didn't get Valtteri's seat. So I've said for 2 or 3 years now that if I was George, I would be looking elsewhere. Now, I know that's difficult because it's easy for me to say, but if Mercedes is steadily becoming a title contender again, no one would want to leave that team. And I understand that. But I wonder if George might not do better at Red Bull or Aston than he is at Mercedes.
Going to Audi.
Or Audi. I don't feel like there's something in me that tells me that Toto likes George, thinks George is a driver,
right.
But he doesn't have that same twinkle in his eye about Lewis that he does for Lewis, and he doesn't have that same twinkle in the eye even that he had for Kimi Antonelli already.
So
and I don't know if it's a personality thing or what it is, but there's just something there. So I think Rosberg is right. And if I was George, I would have, for the last couple of years, I've been looking for a different home.
So we often talk about how the hardest thing for a driver or a rider, if you're a MotoGP fan, right? Like that, if you don't have confidence in your vehicle, right? If you feel like how you go with the car, you can't trust it.
Yeah.
That's going to be hard for you to
Right.
then get the best out of the car. This is that same thing. It's just the humans.
Right.
If you don't trust that the humans have your back and the humans aren't willing to go for the mat for you, how can you perform to your best?
Right.
You have to believe that. Again, Formula One, it's just like my job. It's different than my job. This is how it's just like my job, right?
Right.
I have to know that if I say to my boss, hey, I'm going to go have this meeting with these people, what do you think? And we have a pre-meeting for the meeting and we have a discussion. But if I then get into that meeting with that stakeholder and I say something and my boss goes, well, Grace, actually, yeah, I'm going to be mad.
Yeah.
Where was this in the pre-meeting? When were you going to tell me this? If you don't have, and I can't trust you again, it's going to, you lose trust in buckets, you gain it back in eyedroppers, right?
Yeah,
like
right.
what
Right.
are you, so like, I think if you're George Russell, how can you go out there and have confidence when you know this is what's happening, not even behind your back, in front of your face, to everybody?
I know. Let's do a straw poll. So
nothing.
if you're a Patreon supporter of our podcast, when the evenings that we record, link that you'll see when you become a Patreon supporter on our Patreon page. And that link never changes. So each Monday when we record, you can link and you can join us live for the recording of the podcast. And we have a lot of Patreon supporters in here live with us now. So let's throw out a little straw poll. What do all of you guys in the chat right now during this live podcast, what do you think George should do? Let's say next year Mercedes has a championship run somewhere between second and fourth in the championship. All right.
Okay.
Do you think George should stay at Mercedes when his contract's up, or do you think he should lobby to go to like Aston, Red Bull, Audi, some other team? What do you put it in the chat and let us know what you guys think George should do at the end of the. I'm curious. Total Wolf will eat your soul.
I don't think that was one of the options.
Wait a minute, I've got this.
For it is a human number. Number is 666.
There you go.
Yeah, that's right.
Eating souls, that Total Wolf.
That's right.
So, yeah, let's see. So Dave says he should stay.
I think it's hard, right? Because there's so many other factors.
Yeah.
Right? And if Mercedes really is starting to get its act together, which is what it seems like, and we're about to go into new rules, I think it is hard to say go. But I think if just on the premise of like, does Toto have my back? I'm going to go.
Yeah.
He doesn't.
Yeah.
Become
I don't
friends
feel
with
like he
Ocon,
does.
Don't do it.
Yeah, I don't feel like he does. But that's
So
just me. All right.
I think that, but again, you know where you stand, so maybe that's that.
Jason says he thinks they should stop. He should start window shopping. As new engine regulations show themselves next year, he will be prepared for a move. My feeling is he should move. And if I was him, I would try to get to Aston Martin. Adrian Newey.
Okay, you have to read
Aston
Melton's. That's the answer. That's the
Oh,
winner.
what it said. Do what all the great F1 drivers do. Tell Toto you're faithful and sign with another team. Exactly, Milton. That's exactly
That is the
right.
F1 way.
Yeah.
You've won.
That is exactly right.
That is correct.
If I was
option.
George, I would try to get over an Aston and either
Yeah.
replace Fernando or convince Lawrence to get rid of his son. Yep, I would too.
I don't know how. Okay, because in case Larry hasn't been watching, Your son is tanking your team. You are getting no points from him.
Yeah,
if you haven't dropped him, nothing will convince you to drop him.
Yeah, it's tough.
I can't.
It's tough.
I mean, I guess at least like the 2 episodes of Drive to Survive that I watched, and he was really busted up about, Lance's bike accident.
Yeah,
and
sure.
It's the most emotion I've ever seen from that human being. I wasn't sure he had any.
That's a son. He obviously loves a son.
Yeah, but that doesn't. I mean, we've all seen people that are like, "I love my son. He's my favorite.
Right.
I was really sad that he broke his wrist."
But I was really disappointed he chose to bike right before the F1 season.
Right. So the fact that here's this guy who seems to never show that kind of emotion.
Yeah.
He was really choked up on camera like
that.
Yeah,
he was. Yeah.
But yeah, if this season isn't going to convince him to get rid of Lancey boy, nothing.
Yeah. I agree with you.
Your team is. I'm like You have Fernando Alonso. You're wasting so much. Send him somewhere else already.
Yeah. Jason says his wife and him say this every weekend. Lance needs a new hobby.
Yeah, I mean,
I agree. I think he's a hell of a hockey player. There you go.
I mean, look at what happened at Williams. Go find somebody. Put him in that seat. They'll do better.
Exactly. All right. Let's do some Albin's Cats. That's right. It's time where we talk about Albin's Cats, or random stuff anyway, like Albin's Cats. Tonight, pleasure, Grace will be modeling brand new Albin's Cats leisure wear. Grace, show us.
There we go.
Stan's Racing Team. That is official Alex Albon racing gear. It's one of his cats, and it's Stan's Racing Team. And Grace is showcasing that just for all of you.
There you go. I thought it seemed only appropriate that Alex Albon put out a pet series of his merch. I was like, well,
Right.
I guess I got to get that.
And if you're listening to the podcast, you have to go to our YouTube channel and you can watch it.
It took 3 months to get here because it came from England via Brazil. It sat in Brazil for quite some time. Right? Because, of course, you can watch the tracking. I'm like, is it here yet? Is it here yet?
Why is it in Brazil? Why is it in
Brazil?
Brazil? I'm in northeast of America. Why is it in Brazil?
I don't know, right? It's already annoying that, things take so long. And I still don't understand why I can't get British television without, a VPN. I just want to watch the latest season of, Great Pottery Throwdown, and I have to get a VPN that people use to watch, spicy stuff, action movies, right? That's what I have to do.
Such a circuitous route.
I just want to watch people make pottery. Why is this such a thing? But, hey, here we go. So I bought some Alex Albon merch. And,
nice.
Check it out. And although I don't know if there's any left because I ordered this 8 months ago. It was a while ago. It was easily 3 months.
Yeah.
It was not 8 months ago, but yeah.
All right. Well, hit us with some Albin's Cats. What do you got for us?
Dun, dun, dun. All right. So first things first, I wanted to talk a little bit about since summer break happened for Formula One, and they always ask in the drivers' press conferences, what'd you do during summer break?
Yep.
That's always the question when you come back. I almost said came back to Spa. I'll probably say that until again Spa is what comes back from summer break again. It's like McLaren Mercedes. It took me so long to get rid of saying that now it's all back around again. It's fine.
Right.
So when they started the season after summer break, but I love the interview with Yuki Tsunoda, where the guy that's interviewing, whose name I don't know, but he interviews him every week, so you think I would know his name. But anyway,
Tom.
Tom. Yes, because Carlos always is like, Tom, you ask terrible questions. Why do you ask me these questions every week, right? Yeah. So Tom asked Yuki Tsunoda, what did you do on your summer break? And Yuki's like, I just kind of hung out with my friends. We kind of did stuff. I mean, I see my family quite often, so I didn't hang out with them a lot, but, my friends. And he just kind of left it at that. And Tom goes, right, but what did you do on your summer break with your friends? Yuki again, we just, friend stuff. We just did some stuff, And so then George Russell, what I love is that George tried to present it as if, maybe Yuki didn't understand, there was a language barrier.
Yeah, right.
No, Yuki understood exactly
he knew
what he said. He's avoiding Tom's question, right? So then George Russell gets in and is like, no, he's asking, what sort of things did you do with your friends over summer break? And finally he goes, I was just a man drinking Red Bull. That's what I did over summer break. So there are many things from Formula One that have entered my vernacular. We'll joke, Flip will be trying to make a decision and I'll say something and I'll go, it's just information. Literally, we say that all the time. I'm not trying to sway you from A or B. I'm just giving you some extra information that might help you make a decision, right? This is just information, right? That's great from Verstappen. So now, like, I don't know, I'm just a man drinking Red Bull.
Just a man drinking Red Bull.
That was the best. He just looks right at Tom and is just like, I don't know. I was just a man drinking Red Bull.
It's great.
You worked in the sponsorship. Perfect job, Yuki. That training,
we covered all the bases.
Training has paid off, and you did not tell us of any of the illegal things that you were probably doing with your friends.
Yeah.
You don't want us to know about.
He definitely wants that seat next year.
Or all the Big Mac you ate, or whatever you weren't supposed to be doing over not exercising.
Right.
So
right.
I loved that a man drinking Red Bull.
That's great.
The next one I wanted to bring up was, they do all the Formula One do the unbox videos. I don't know what they're actually called, where they pit all the drivers against each other to do something in some allotment of time. And once again, I stand by, I think that they should also give this quiz to Vettel, because I think Vettel should be the baseline. Because if you can beat Vettel, then that's an achievement, right? Like, because Vettel knows all this archaic stuff. So the one that we watched recently, a couple weeks ago, they had to name a driver's last name that started with each letter of the alphabet from A to Z that had at least 100 races. So it's funny, right? Because of course I'm playing along at home, and some of them you're like, gosh, I don't know. And then of course it's funny when they can't think of like their teammates or somebody on the grid, like Alonso or something like that. But then when they get to, almost everybody goes, Montoya, JPM, Montoya. That was like, because at some point, especially in there, you're kind of like, I know an M, Montoya. He doesn't have 100 race starts.
Yeah.
I was just like, I didn't know. So now I learned something, that I thought JPM was in much longer into the sport than he was. But then there were some people that had 100 race starts that they'd say that. I'm like, that guy wasn't in that long. He apparently was. So I apparently have no sense of time or the number of races in a given season. But JPM, not in as long as I thought, apparently.
Oh, JPM. Gone are the days.
That's what I learned. And then my last story is, so I have cats, as you all know.
Yeah,
right?
you do.
And so one of the things they tell you for cats, and they're indoor cats. So one of the things they tell you to do is like put up bird feeders, because then your cats can watch the bird feeders.
Yes.
Right? Like cat TV, it keeps them occupied, gives them something to do, and they're not outside, so they can't watch the birds. You have to bring like the birds to them, right?
Yep.
Cats love that. So, I have bird feeders, and as like everything, it becomes a very slippery slope. And I have hummingbirds, right? This is hummingbird season. They're on their migratory path back. And I have 2 of them. And of course I name them, because I name all my birds. Like all my cardinals are named after Ducati riders. I can't tell them apart, right? They're all male cardinals. I don't know. But, it's fun to be like, oh, look, there's Dovey. How's it going?
Yeah.
But, they're all, So I just named them after all the Ducati riders, because they're red, the males. So, but my hummingbirds. So I named the first one. So I think I've had this conversation earlier. Hummingbirds, right? They're like this big, right?
Yes.
But they come for you. They are.
Oh, yeah.
They will chase other birds around.
Oh, yeah. They're aggressive.
I'm trying to change his food. And meanwhile, he's like, poke. I'm like, calm down. I'm trying to save your life. Like, calm down, buddy. And the whole time I'm changing his food, he just hovers like this, right?
Yeah.
Like he's just waiting. Like, calm down. You're going to give us all a heart attack, right? Like, and so I named him Max Biaggi, because he's, the first one was Max Biaggi because he's a little aggressive.
Yeah.
A little aggressive, right? And so then the second one, and I said to Flip, I was like, what should I name the second one? And he's like, without missing a beat, I can't believe you didn't name either of them Soodle. All they do is stab you. Why did you name them Soodle?
Yes.
So now I have Max Biaggi
and Soodle. That's awesome. I love it. I have a hummingbird feeder right out here, and there's always 3 or 4. It starts off when, each one will come in, take a little bit and leave. Yeah. But boy, when 3 or 4 of them show up at the same time, I mean, it gets bloody out there.
Chaos.
Yeah, it's chaos. Yeah.
And then they just like sit on the top of the shepherd's hook like this.
Yeah.
Just waiting to fight.
Serious.
I'm like, and then, and they're like, and so people's advice is like, you should have more than one. I'm like, do you know how much work a hummingbird feeder is? Right. I can barely maintain one. And especially like now the weather has broke, so it's not so bad. But when it's like 9,000 degrees outside, oh God, I'm like, I gotta change it.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Day.
It's crazy.
So, but yeah, when the accident happens and they didn't get the memo of what time their hour was to be at the feeder,
right?
Yeah, it's not good.
So
it isn't good.
My cats, they sit in the window, and we have so many deer in the forest where I live. So here's a good example. This is a deer looking right into my window at my cats. So the deer just walk right up to the window. You have to go to YouTube to see it, folks.
That's crazy. It's right up.
So I'll be sitting in my office, and all of a sudden I just see this big black eye literally right up against the window looking in here at me. It's so funny. The deer out here are great. My daughter has them all named. They all have names,
you have to name them.
Yeah, they're all
well,
named.
that's good.
It's
I feel
funny.
better about naming all my cardinals.
So you're in good company. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I live in the suburbs, but we get deer, right? And I live right near a big park with a big lake, and so they come across our backyard, and we have a motion detector in the backyard, right? So the light comes on, it's like, oh, who's out there?
Right.
Giant deer, right?
Yeah. And
so I was home this weekend with my family, and they were like, oh, you should put a mineral lick out there for it. I'm like, that's great. Because again, they live in the country, that's fine. You can do that.
Yeah, right.
I'm like, I'm going to start with one deer. Before I know it, I'm going to have 20 deer in my backyard.
Yeah.
And then on my, whatever
I know.
plot of land here in the suburbs. I'm like, that. My neighbors will love that. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's crazy. We live out, in like 1,400 acres of forest. So there's literally herds out here. So for me to drive by the field and see 50, 60 deer is common. But, you go to the back of my house and there'll be 12 deer in my backyard, they're all just hanging out. It's weird. Yeah. But, so, and in keeping with names, though, the names of I have two cats. The names of my cats, Luca and Enzo. Right? Yeah. So Luca di Montezemolo and Enzo Ferrari, right? So it's Luca and Enzo. They're brothers, but yeah.
Yeah. I used to get a lot of raccoons, and then I had to stop putting squirrel food out because Yeah. It really upsets Ziggy, but there was like see them on the back porch.
Right.
All the raccoons. It was like, maybe that's not great.
You want to hear some no shit headlines?
Yeah, sure.
All right.
I'm sure people are done hearing about my birds.
They're like, oh my gosh, stop.
I can do that podcast. Wine, cheese, birds.
I know. Just stop it. Get to the show.
This is the show.
Birds or joy?
First one. It's the Lawrence Stroll Hour. First headline I like. F1 owner can buy 13 Premier League teams as he looks to outmuscle Red Bull.
What?
What just said billionaire looks to outmuscle Red Bull?
Were they trying to measure it in cups of Starbucks or something?
Clearly
13 Premier Leagues is how much money he has.
Right. Well, that's like 3 Starbucks coffees.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm clearly talking to football lovers in the UK, but because I don't know, does your average British person know how much a Premier League team costs? I don't know. I don't.
I have no idea. And I'm sure there's some variance, right? Just like with F1 teams, right?
But, then they'll say, it's 10 stone. I don't know what the hell that is. I'm on old money. I'm on the King's foot, for crying out loud. Come on.
I don't. Okay, that's weird.
What do you want from me? Cool. All right, next one. Billionaire F1 owner's master plan to oust Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton made clear. Read it, and it's not made clear at all. They just talked about him trying to hire Adrian Newey. Wouldn't you say Adrian Newey in the headline?
What does that have to do with Lewis Hamilton and?
Well, it's clickbait because Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen is going to attract more clicks than Newey. There you go. For non-F1 fans, but for F1 fans, we'd click on it if it was Newey because we know who that is.
Okay.
At F1 made clear, nope. Nope.
Not at all.
That's exactly it. And then finally, my final no shit headline is FIA issues statement as third F1 team lodged complaint about McLaren car.
There's nothing here to see, people.
Well, according to McLaren, and the FIA.
According to Grace and Zach Brown, there's nothing here to see.
Zach and Grace have assured me there's nothing to see here. So, in case you want to know, it was over the flexible front wing, and I think they thought it was deflecting too much. And the teams were Ferrari, Red Bull, and Williams. Those are the 3 teams that lodged a complaint.
I would also just, before we back out of the show, as might be what's happening next here, I would just like to call out Ian. Ian, who said, me talking about birds, well, we escaped 30 minutes of MotoGP talk, so it's a win. Fine. Is that where this is now? I see.
Yes. Yeah, your MotoGP-ness is wearing thin, apparently, Grace.
Too bad, people. You listen to this podcast. You get a soundboard, you get me talking about two Masanos.
And you get me, the idiot, apparently.
Just think, come on.
You get me, the guy that doesn't know a damn thing about F1.
I mean, we could talk about Jorge Martin not knowing if it's raining or not, or the fact that, the Ducati riders knew by smell, which I think was a great discovery.
Or we could talk about Mark Marquez winning.
That's right. Does anybody have anything for Mark Marquez?
No.
Of course you don't.
No,
Apparently
you don't. You don't.
Because again, we're about to have second Masano, so he could get 3 in a row.
He could.
Who knows?
He could. That'd be good.
But Pecco will be better. So
maybe
a little less run over.
Yeah.
How many? I mean, that accident never was. I literally feel like I watched it a million times. Every time they showed it, it never got better. I'm like, please stop. What's wrong with you?
They showed it a lot, and anyway.
And it happened to be in the corner where the slow-mo
Yeah, right.
Which always gives you great shots, but it was just like, we're going to watch this accident from every angle. Now we're going to watch it in slow motion. I think we're done.
Yeah.
We're good. It never ended well.
No, it always ended the same.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that does it for this podcast. That's what we think about the news this week. Let us know what you think about Adrian Newey to Aston Martin. Let us know what you think about Audi and if they should pick a veteran or a youngster, and Rosberg or even Ferrari's reshuffle. Let us know what you think about it. You can do that by going to the Parc Fermé. Share your opinion in the comment section of this podcast post. And if you like this podcast, go over to your favorite player and give us a good rating. Give us some love over there. We'd appreciate it. And tell everyone about the podcast. Share it with your friends, family, your enemies. Be great. Yep, Dave, thanks so much for attending. For all of our Patreon supporters who attended the live, thank you for your input tonight. It's always great to have you guys here, being able to interact with you guys in real time. It's great. And we'll be back next weekend. We'll find Paul, because you know what it is. It's a race. It's Baku, and we'll be back to review the race. And until that time, this is Todd, a.k.a. Negative Camber, saying so long, Grace.
See you in a couple weeks.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.